The axe was already in the house. That was the part nobody could explain. Whoever was doing this didn't bring a weapon. They didn't need to. They walked into your home in the middle of the night, found the axe you kept in the corner, the one you used to split wood, the one every family in New Orleans owned, and they used it on you. Then they left it behind, covered in blood, and walked back out into the dark. No forced entry, no stolen goods, no witnesses, no fingerprints. Just the axe and the bodies. Between 1918 and 1919, someone terrorized the city of New Orleans in a way that has never been fully explained. They sent a letter to a newspaper announcing their next attack. They made a city full of people dance in fear. And then they vanished. They were never caught. They were never identified. This is the story of the Axeman of New Orleans. New Orleans, 1918. A city of music, heat, and shadow. The First World War had just ended. The city was alive with celebration, jazz spilling out of every bar and dance hall in the French Quarter. But beneath the celebration, something dark had begun. Somebody was entering homes at night. They chiseled through the back panels of doors, a slow, quiet method that left no noise, no forced entry, and no witnesses. They crept inside while families slept, and when they were done, they vanished into the dark streets of New Orleans without a trace. The weapon was always an axe, and in almost every case, the axe belonged to the victim, taken from somewhere inside the home and used against them. The killer left it behind. No fingerprints, no footprints, no witnesses, just the axe and the bodies. The first confirmed attack was on May 23, 1918. Joseph Maggio and his wife Catherine were found in their bedroom, both struck with an axe. Joseph was dead. Catherine died shortly after. The back door panel had been chiseled out. The axe was found in the bathroom, covered in blood. Nothing was stolen. 6 weeks later, Louis Bessemer and his companion Harriet Lowe were attacked in the same manner. Harriet survived for months before dying of her injuries. Bessemer survived and was actually arrested, wrongly, and later acquitted. Then, Anna Schneider, 8 months pregnant, was found by her husband in their blood-soaked bedroom. She survived. So did her baby, born days later. Then Joseph Romano, attacked in his bed while his nieces slept in the next room. He died 2 days later. The attacks were spreading. The city was terrified. And the pattern was becoming clear. Almost every victim was an Italian-American grocer. The killer seemed to be targeting a specific community, methodically, patiently, and without leaving a single piece of evidence behind. The New Orleans Police Department had nothing. No suspect, no motive they could confirm, no physical evidence that connected the scenes. The only consistent detail was the method. Chiseled door panel, victim's own axe, no theft. Theories circulated wildly. Some believed it was the work of the Black Hand, the Italian-American criminal organization that had operated in New Orleans for decades, extorting money from immigrant business owners. Perhaps these were punishment killings. Perhaps someone had refused to pay. Others believed it was a single individual, a predator who moved through the city's back streets unseen, who planned carefully, who killed not for money, but for something else entirely. The Italian community lived in fear. Families barricaded their doors. Grocers slept with weapons nearby. Parents kept children indoors. And still the attacks continued. In 1919, a man named Orlando Giordano and his son Frank were arrested for the murder of Charles Cortimiglia and the death of his young daughter Mary. The mother, Rosie Cortimiglia, testified against them even though they had been family friends. They were convicted. Orlando was sentenced to hang. But Rosie later recanted. She admitted she had lied. The Jordanas were released. The real killer had never been found, and the city was beginning to understand that the police were not going to solve this. Then, on March 13, 1919, the Times-Picayune newspaper received a letter. It read as follows: Hell, March 13, 1919. Esteemed mortal, they have never caught me, and they never will. They have never seen me, for I am invisible, even as the ether that surrounds your earth. I am not a human being, but a spirit and a demon from the hottest hell. I am what you Orleanians and your foolish police call the Axeman. When I see fit, I shall come and claim other victims. I alone know whom they shall be. I shall leave no clue except my bloody axe, besmeared with blood and brains of he whom I have sent below to keep me company. Now, to be exact, at 12:15 earthly time on next Tuesday night, I am going to pass over New Orleans. In my infinite mercy, I am going to make a little proposition to you people. Here it is. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing at the time I have just mentioned. If everyone has a jazz band going, well then, so much the better for you people. One thing is certain, and that is that some of your people who do not jazz it on Tuesday night, if there be such, will get the axe. Yours truly, the Axeman. The city erupted. Tuesday, March 19th, 1919. New Orleans did not sleep. Every dance hall, every bar, every club was packed beyond capacity. Bands played through the night. People threw impromptu parties in their homes, hiring musicians or playing their own instruments. A local composer wrote a song in the Axeman's honor, The Mysterious Axeman's Jazz, and it became the most requested song in the city overnight. On Rampart Street, on Basin Street, on every corner of the French Quarter, jazz poured out into the warm night air. The police patrolled the streets in force, watching, waiting. And the Axeman? He kept his word. Not a single attack occurred that night. Whether he was watching, satisfied, from somewhere in the shadows, whether he stayed home and listened to the music from afar, or whether the letter had been a hoax from the beginning, nobody knows. But the city had danced for a killer, and it had worked. The attacks did not stop after March 19th. In August 1919, Steve Boca was struck in his sleep and barely survived. In September, a young girl named Sarah Lawman was attacked in her bedroom. In October, Mike Pepitone was killed, the last confirmed victim of the Axeman. And then, as suddenly as they had begun, the attacks stopped. New Orleans waited. Weeks passed. Months. No new victims. No new letters. The Axeman had vanished. But the story did not end there. In December 1920, a woman named Esther Pepitone, the widow of the Axeman's last victim, Mike Pepitone, tracked down a man named Joseph Mumphrey in Los Angeles and shot him dead in the street. She was arrested. At trial, she claimed that Mumphrey was the Axeman, that she had recognized him from New Orleans, that she knew he had killed her husband. The timing was compelling. Mumphrey had been in prison during the periods between the Axeman attacks and had been released each time the attacks resumed. He had connections to New Orleans. He had a criminal history. But Esther Pepitone could not prove it. There was no physical evidence connecting Mumphrey to a single crime scene, no confession, no witness. She was convicted of murder and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Joseph Mumphrey was buried in Los Angeles. whether he was the Axeman, died with him. The Axeman of New Orleans killed at least 6 people and attacked a dozen more. He terrorized a city for over a year. He sent a letter to a newspaper and made a city full of people dance in fear. And he was never identified. Was it Joseph Mumfree, the ex-convict whose release from prison coincided perfectly with the attacks? Was it a Black Hand enforcer, punishing Italian grocers who refused to pay? Was it something far more random and far more terrifying? A predator with no pattern and no motive that any of us could understand? Or was the letter itself the greatest clue, written by someone who wanted the city to know that he could walk among them, unseen, untouchable, and entirely in control? He said he was a demon from the hottest hell. He said they would never catch him. So far, he has been right. What do you think? Who was the Axeman of New Orleans? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you want more cases like this, subscribe, because the next story is even darker.